I'm Iain Curry, this is Chasing Cars, and you join me here in a very cold South Korea to take a look at one of the most interesting and important new launches of the year, the 2024 Hyundai Santa Fe 7-seat large SUV. And as you can see, it has been a radical departure on the design front. You're not going to mistake it at all for the current generation Santa Fe. It's certainly polarizing in its looks, but it's boxy, it's interesting, and take a look at the back end of this thing, these low down lights, that's massively polarized opinion. People have compared it to the Land Rover Defender, but otherwise it's like nothing else you'll see on the road, and certainly nothing else like it in the Hyundai range. These new Santa Fe's are already on the road here in South Korea, but we're not going to see them in Australia until we believe April 2024. We don't know the full specifications and we don't know the pricing either, but we can guarantee it's going to be more expensive than the current model, which starts from about 50,000 drive away up to 75,000 drive away. I'd say conservatively add about $5,000 to those figures, and that's probably what we'll be paying for the new model. We're going to be taking a quick look around the new Santa Fe. We'll be having a deep dive inside it, and we'll, of course, we'll be trying it on the public roads here as well. Let's get started. The car with me here, this is the hybrid version. So that's a 1.6 litre turbocharged petrol 4-cylinder with electric hybrid powertrain as well. Now, this is the one we're going to be getting from launch in Australia. They're launching with just the one model only. So importantly, that means no 2.5 litre turbo petrol. We believe that will be following soon after. And no V6 petrol, and of course no diesel as well. That could be a problem for Hyundai because that's the big tower. It's the most popular one in the Santa Fe range currently. But this hybrid, that's going to be doing the heavy lifting when it comes to the economy front. 6.5 litres per 100 kilometres on this, so that's pretty close to the diesel economy as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Australians take to this new hybrid model. What a distinctive design up front. I think the new Santa Fe looks fantastic. Massive blocky elements through the bumper. Really interesting range of color choices as well. They're going to be quite interesting, including this matte one in front of me. But what about these front headlights? This really cool H pattern, and that's a real design signature that actually goes through the new Santa Fe. Really distinctive, really interesting, a cut above and different to other SUVs on the road. The distinctiveness continues down the side of this vehicle. Look at the size of these giant boxy arches. They look fantastic. 18-inch wheels on this one, but we know we can get up to 21 inches on these. They really fill the arches much better. Let me show you this cool little feature. This is a handle that just pops out. So if you've got anything on your roof, you can just hop up, hop on the wheel, grab that, and you can easily access anything on your roof box. It's different, isn't it? It really is something to take in, and I know a few of you have been writing on the internet saying exactly what you think of this rear end. Some of it sometimes not very pleasant at all. But you know what? Having followed this car, having seen it in the metal quite a lot, it has really grown on me. That's despite it being like nothing else I've really ever seen design-wise. What takes me is how low the roofline actually looks back here. And if you look how tapered it is at the back end, it actually looks quite skinny. And that's despite the Santa Fe here being slightly larger than the current model. The lights, of course, incredibly distinctive, low down set, has this H pattern that looks a little bit like a Space Invader to me. And down here, this is where your indicators and your reversing light is. Really low mount. Very unusual design, but again, maybe it's one of those ones you either love it or you hate it. But certainly look at the size of this tailgate as well. That's an absolute whopper. And when that opens up, you really do have a lovely expansive view out the back of this thing. So really interesting. I'm keen to know what you think about it actually, because it is so polarizing, isn't it? Trim all feels very good. I've just got soft touch for the tops of my doors, and I've also seen these in two-tone, including quite a nice like dark olive green color. That's quite funky, and some trim here that's almost bamboo-like. And again, I'm not quite sure about that one, especially there was a white and black one. So again, we'll have to see what our final spec is for Australia. Storage-wise, you've got pretty much acres in here. This is a clever thing where I can just store in here, but that also accesses through to the back seat. So there's a sliding tray out there, so you can almost share snacks, phones, whatever, that just come through here, and additional storage underneath as well. So you're well looked after on that front. This thing is very interesting. I'm still not sure about it, but there's an extra glove box up here which has UV light in there if you want to sanitize your product. So if you're something that's handling a lot, like a phone or a wallet, you can put it in there. It's blasted with UV rays, and it's apparently then totally clean. So ideal for you OCD folk out there. This being the top spec Santa Fe, you've got all the luxury inclusions you'd expect. That's your heated, ventilated and massage seats as well, and multi-electric adjust memory seat. So again, we have to see exactly what we'll be getting Australia specification wise, in what grade and for what cost. But don't worry, you're well looked after on the luxury front if you're spending big. Absolutely no problems in the middle row of the new Santa Fe. Even though this one has the twin sunroofs above me, my headroom is absolutely vast. I'm 6 foot for reference, and I'm totally covered with loads of space back here, including my leg room as well. Really, really good use of space. It's certainly helped by a slightly longer wheelbase in this car. Design element wise, that H pattern is continued in other little elements of the car, including on the leather seating. And what I've done with this front seat here, that's got a special relax recline feature that can just fold up and just rest under your legs as well. It's a lovely comfy option for there. And for these middle row of seats, there's no ventilation down in the center console. That's instead on your B pillars, also in this funky H design, which leaves me space for a very nice storage bin in there that you can access, put plenty of stuff in there like your snacks and your phones. Really comfortable back here. I've got a lovely recline as well for this seat, so you're not going to have any problems if you're doing a long journey in the middle of this. For these middle row passengers, there's USB-C ports just in the seat backs of the seats in front. I've also got heated seating back here, being the top grade. Now, this is a Korean market Santa Fe, and they do 5-seat versions here, and unfortunately that's the one we've been given for our filming today. But I can tell you that the boot in hopefully both the 5-seat and the 7-seat will be 725 litres, and that's a massive 91 litres over the current model. And these slide on runners as well to up your versatility. Now, I did do a decent length of time sat in the third row of a test car yesterday, and you do have nice things like more USB-C ports, you've got cup holders, nice padding for your armrests as well. And that's a 6-footer. Again, headroom is really, really good. Legroom quite compromised, but as to be expected for a third row vehicle. I'd love to show you it, but unfortunately we can't. But electric tailgate as well, that's standard on these cars, and a really massive square opening out the back. So fascinating car if you want to go camping in it as well. We've just hit the streets now in Seoul, South Korea, and this is our first sample of the hybrid version of the new Santa Fe, which is the vehicle we'll be getting in Australia from launch. This one's the front wheel drive version. It looks like we'll be getting the all-wheel drive version from launch. So it's slightly different, but certainly the engine is the same setup. And it's going to be a carryover from the one that we received previously in the current generation Santa Fe. And that means it's well known, it's smooth, it's not terribly quick, and I suppose it's got big lifting to do though, because this is going to be the economical choice. If we're not getting a diesel, which we're certainly not from launch, who knows if we'll receive one at all for this generation, this is going to have to be the one that does reasonable economy. At the moment we're getting low 7 litres per 100 kilometre just around town, and that seems to be it for the longer trips as well. Of course, the concern with the hybrid for many buyers will be its towing capacity. This hybrid version only has a 1650 kilogram tow rating. That's with a 100 kilogram downball. So it's not going to be any use for towing your big caravans. Again, that would be the thing that the diesel is used for. But at least we're going to be getting the 2.5 litre turbo petrol, and that'll be the one if you need to tow. We're still waiting for the official line on how much that will tow, but I'd imagine it'll be 2200 or 2300 kilograms. As for the performance figures of this engine, it's 169 kilowatts and a reasonable 350 newton meters, so you've got decent shove thanks to that hybridization. 0 to 100 you're looking at about 9.5 seconds, so it's certainly not a quick vehicle, but arguably if you're after a 7-seat family SUV, performance isn't going to be your main worry, is it? One thing I have noticed is just when I'm doing low speed work, which would be very indicative of where these cars will be around town, it completely stays in EV mode, much like a Toyota hybrid would. And it is incredibly quiet, very smooth, and that's just what you want from city life for one of these things. And you're using no fuel, of course, just the battery power. And at the moment I'm sat at 50 kilometers an hour, just coasting, which is the speed limit here, and we're still in full EV mode. And then when I need a little bit more shove, just put the throttle in, you can get that lovely electric pull, and then the petrol engine just fires up and you don't even notice it at all. There's just a little green light saying when I'm in EV mode, and then it drops out when it goes into petrol. But imperceptible, incredibly smooth transition there. So a great job Hyundai technicians have done. We believe it's going to be an absolute carryover, the hybrid system petrol engine that's come from the current generation Santa Fe, and that means the same 6-speed auto gearbox, which has behaved incredibly well so far. We've tested also the 2.5 litre turbo engine out here in Korea, and that has the 8-speed dual clutch transmission. And again, there's been very little problems with that in terms of low speed work. Again, very smooth. It's really hard to fault these transmissions. And the 2.5 litre turbo certainly has more guts than this hybrid. You certainly feel the speed and power builds a lot easier. But again, if you're after economy, if you're chasing economy, this is dramatically more economical. Like I say, from the sort of low sevens we're getting with the hybrid, we were getting closer to 9.5 litres per 100 kilometres in the 2.5 litre turbo. Whereas I must say, I really like the nice electric smooth pull around town. What you really miss from not having a diesel, and remember, about 70% of all Santa Fe sales currently in Australia are diesel. I haven't got that instant torque kick that you can only get from a turbo diesel, whereas I've put my foot down here. It takes a little bit of time to wake up, and then there's easy pull, but again, certainly not terribly rapid. As for ride quality, we still don't know exactly what tune we'll be getting for Australia, but I'd imagine it'll be very similar to what this Korean domestic market one is, and there's going to be no complaints there. We've been really impressed with what this thing has done. Again, not with this hybrid. When we had the 2.5 litre turbo, we've sat on the highway at highway speeds. We've taken some pretty decent country roads, and the ride quality has always been very, very well resolved. The way it soaks up the bumps has been very, very impressive indeed. And although we haven't got the opportunity here in town, throwing it around a few corners, it still felt very stable and quite well planted. Not too much body roll either in those tighter turns, which is great for such a big car, because this hybrid itself is 2.2 tons, in fact, just over 2.2 tons, which is quite a bit more than the outgoing vehicle actually. And I rode for quite a while in the third row seats, and while it's certainly you'll feel the hits a lot more, it's not incredibly uncomfortable. So if you are carrying that many children, including those in the very back seat, hopefully they won't get car sick. There's enough space back there, it's well appointed, it's comfortable, so a really decent third row seat for traveling in. As we expect with Hyundais these days, they do have that nice balance of really good comfortable damping, but enough control when you do put it into a corner that it will hold on, it won't go all wobbly. So I'm hitting a few bumps here at these low speeds, and you can feel it's a little bit jittery at low speeds. But again, I'm really picking there, because otherwise there's very little to fault about the ride quality of this car, as it should do. Serving as a family vehicle with a few kids, it really is. It's hit the nail on the head. It's hit its mark. So yeah, again, well done Hyundai. One thing I've noticed as well, doing the hundreds of kilometers that we have, previous Hyundais, some of their driver assist aids have been a little bit too invasive, especially the lane keep assist. They must have done some pretty decent work here, because it's really working imperceptibly. Again, I'm just edging over the lanes here a little bit, and it just really gently pulls the steering back in, tries to keep me in the center of the road. And it's, again, not too invasive at all. And that's what has been the problem with some of the Hyundai systems up to now. Very important for Hyundai to get right is, of course, to make these things very comfortable, and we are in the top grade specification here, so these seats are pretty sink in. I'm well cosseted, and yeah, I must say the sound insulation as well. When we were up to speed on the highway, yeah, there's a bit of wind intrusion, but around town here, very smooth, very quiet. And maybe my biggest takeaway is these hybrids, which is going to be our only option at first. It really is lovely to have that low speed, absolute quiet, working on electric and battery only. And key is when that petrol engine fires up, it is super quiet. If you've only had diesel or would only consider diesel in these vehicles before, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with the hybrid's drive experience. The only thing will be, of course, that towing and how many sales will be lost to Hyundai because the towing rating isn't there with a diesel choice. On first sample of the new Santa Fe with this hybrid drivetrain, I must say I'd understand the concern for Australian buyers if you'd only had maybe a diesel version before or would only consider a diesel version. I'd say don't be afraid of this petrol hybrid, because the economy is very, very good. The smoothness of the drive is exceptional, and I must say a real win is how effortless that move from electric and battery power at slow speed turns into the petrol when that comes in as well. But it will be interesting to see how many sales Hyundai will lose because of not offering the diesel engine, which is of course a more familiar drivetrain and will have the better towing. But we just have to accept that globally diesel is massively out of favour. We're one of the only markets that would really consider it. So it'll be interesting to see if it does come and exactly how many will still opt for it over a hybrid. And one thing I have found interesting, despite being such a big thing, the turning circle for a little city move like that is actually very good indeed. For such a big rig, yeah, you can handle it in the city and it doesn't feel like this massive lumbering thing. So living in the city, not a problem too much with this at all. What's the takeaway then on the new Hyundai Santa Fe? Well, what an interesting vehicle. It certainly rides superbly well. It's comfortable, it's spacious, but there are some unknowns that we are still to find out for the Australian market. Cost, of course, is going to be incredibly important, as is the final specification, but maybe key will be the engine choice. Launching with just that 1.6 litre turbo petrol hybrid, will that be exactly what Australians want? Will they miss the diesel? We can't wait to find out. But of course, what do we think of that back end? That's the contentious point. Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. And thanks as ever for watching Chasing Cars.